Good evening, good afternoon to everybody. I want to introduce you Mr. Sean Gold, the president of ASEDIA, an international organization, and he will be the coordinator of this kind of table, Focus F, Table 1. And now, Mr. Gold, please. Yeah, you are allowed to talk.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Stephanie. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Table F1. We are dealing with Goal 4, Agenda 2030, Target 4.4. So everybody's on the right table, I presume, and we're ready to go. Okay, everybody is most welcome and delighted that you were able to partake in this webinar this evening. And I hope we'll have interesting discussion and interesting presentations. Before moving on and giving the table to various people, I'll just we have a position paper which I'll go through very briefly. Goal 4, Agenda 2030, aims to provide quality, fair and inclusive education and learning opportunities for all. Target 4.4 is to increase considerably by 2030 the number of young people and adults with adequate skills, including technical and professional skills for employment, decent work and entrepreneurship. The indicator that defines the target is defined with the percentage of young people and adults with information and communication skills by type of competence. The indicator that defines the target is defined with the percentage of young people and adults with information and communication skills by type of competence. In the context of the relationship between university and profession, it would be desirable that the university extend its presence into the entire professional life of economists, not only for the need for training and updating, but also as an opportunity for a broader comparison on evolving professional horizons in order to continuously improve the quality of services. In addition, the close relationship between the educational and professional spheres contribute in defining the degree courses and the teaching and training guidelines that are most appropriate to the changes that occur in the professional fields by continuously adapting the contents of the training offered. With regard to permanent professional training, in many countries it is an integral part of the rules of the freelance profession. Since 2020, the European Council itself has acknowledged the need to create an economy based on the most competitive knowledge in the world, capable of achieving sustainable economic growth accompanied by new and better conditions and greater social cohesion. It is necessary to improve the process of public recognition of permanent professional training, continuous professional development, which guarantees the quality of the professional's performance and determines a guarantee for the community. The right of access must be integrated with the right to say with professional skills whose levels are even deeper and whose boundaries are even wider and more nuanced. Ultimately, professional training represents above all in this period of ecological transition a need to enhance the professional specificity of the agronomist and enhance his role. The COVID-19 pandemic has opened new opportunities for university education and distance permanent professional education, while increasing the possibilities and cost effectiveness of implementing knowledge, it must nevertheless suitably integrate with traditional training indispensable for the profession of agronomists who act with a strong territorial or regional connotation. So that is the position paper as set out by WAA, by the World Association of Agronomists. Of course, different countries and different associations have different processes. People in many southern European countries are registered. We don't have registration in Northern Europe, so things are a little different in that respect. But nevertheless, we all do the same courses, and we all have to keep ourselves updated and be competent professionals. Can I now ask some of the first speaker to come online? The first person I have on my list is Dale Cramond, and I would like to invite Dale onto the stage.
Can you hear me?
Dale, and you're welcome to the webinar. Nice to see you on here. For the rest of you, of course, Dale is the manager in the Ministry of Agriculture. He has just come back from Washington, where he was consular in the embassy for the last number of years. So he's well au fait with international goings on, both in the US and in Ireland. So I'm delighted you're here this evening, Dale, to give us your views on this particular area.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Sean. It's great to be here. I've been stuck in front of the computer for most of the day on different webinars, but it's always great to get to see you, chat to you, and chat to your audience. So yes, my name is Dale Cramond. I'm the agricultural inspector in the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine in Dublin. As Sean said, I did a stint in our Foreign Affairs Department between 2015 and 2019. So obviously that was a great experience being over in Washington, D.C. I'm working in our embassy over there, and I certainly learned a lot. You know, there's certainly a lot of challenges between the EU and the US in terms of agriculture, but I don't think that's the topic of today's discussion. I'll speak a little bit just about, about climate change and the policy space in Ireland where we are, and I suppose the importance then of the training and education in terms of, driving that behavioural change among our farmers and the wider industry in order to be able to meet our goals, our sustainable development goals, but also then our European climate targets and ultimately our national climate targets also. So Ireland, in 2019, we published an all-of-government climate action plan. And this was the first time that the government as a whole, published a sectoral kind of document, and they assigned sectoral reduction targets to each sector. And agriculture was given a reduction of 10 to 15% on 2017 levels. So we probably fared better, if you like, if I can use that term, compared to some other sectors such as transport and energy, where they had to cut emissions by maybe up to 55%. But notwithstanding that, because of the biological nature of food production, it's very challenging. In Ireland, 34% of our greenhouse gas emissions come from agriculture. So there's always going to be a focus in our sector in terms of, it's not just about driving efficiency change. We're very efficient producers per kilogram of product, some of the most efficient producers in the world. But our absolute emissions have been increasing on the back of dairy cow numbers rising in recent years, when on the back of the milk quota regime changing in 2015. So we're setting out now on a journey out to 2030, initially, but obviously, the whole 2050 piece as the EU, sets on a journey to carbon neutrality, and you know what that will mean for agriculture will be very challenging, you know, for the sector. You know, technology is going to play a key role in that. We're seeing, you know, in terms of methane emissions coming from ruminants, we're seeing a number of feed additives now being verified in the final stages with EFSA, and they are going to be very important in terms of, you know, enabling our ruminant sector to reduce our emissions of methane. We have to figure out how we have to pay for this ultimately, and that'll be a consideration, whether the industry will have to pay that or the consumer will have to make a contribution. And obviously the public sector through CAP funding, there may well be a role there also. But, you know, it's certainly challenging, and, you know, we can have the best policy in place, but, you know, without suitable training and without training the people that needed to be trained, we're not going to be successful in reaching our goals and targets. And it's something that Ireland are very, you know, focused on and very kind of conscious of. You know, we're seeing developments in Brussels with European innovation partnerships and the agricultural knowledge and innovation systems and developments around that recently. And we see these as being crucially important. I think from an Irish point of view, we're probably coming from a good place in that we have an organisation called Teagasc, which has education, research, and the advisory services under the one umbrella organisation. And I know Teagasc are well known, you know, throughout Europe and indeed the world. When I was in the US, it always amazed me when we went to visit some research institutions, and I learned that they had actual collaborations with Teagasc in Ireland. So that always made me very proud. So this is the challenge. You know, we're going to have to train the advisory service, you know, in a way that, you know, drives the behavioural change we need to see on farm in order to reach our goals. And you know, we're going to have to be innovative in how we do that. And the fact that we're on a webinar here this evening and in different times, we might have been meeting. And, you know, I wouldn't mind a trip to some nice part of Europe at the moment. As I said, I'm on the screen all day, but we are doing things differently now. Like, so that this whole online space, you know, that's kind of emerged through the COVID crisis. I certainly think there's a lot of merit in that in terms of, you have a huge opportunity to reach out to, you know, thousands of people potentially, you know, on a webinar. So it's a very cost-effective way of training people and providing advisory kind of services online. And I know that's something that we've started to do in Ireland. Teagasc have organised a series of workshops over the last couple of months, every Friday morning at 9:30, and they've proved hugely successful. So, you know, I think this whole training space is absolutely crucial. We can have all the policies in the world. We can have the best policies in the world. But unless we have that kind of, you know, integrated training piece, we're not going to be successful. Europe's not going to be successful. And ultimately, the globe is not going to be successul. So I think I'll leave it there for the moment, Sean. I'm happy to pick up on the discussion later on.
Thank you very much, Dale. That was a very interesting presentation. And I think what we'll do is we'll have the talks first and then what time we have left, because I know the time is fairly tight and I don't want to leave anybody out at the end. So if everybody bears with me, if there are questions, we'll have them at the end. And I think we'll try and proceed that way. I'm not sure how I can get you all back in one after, but anyway, let's try it. And I'll go on to the next person. And I think Isabella might be ready to come on. And thanks again, Dale, and we'll be back.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay. Dale, you're on stage. I'm not sure how we get to you off stage.
Do I have to? I don't know whether I have to disconnect myself. I can't see any options for that. So I'll let you stay in charge, Sean.
Yeah, okay, Dale, we'll figure it out, I'm sure. Now, I think I have got you off, and I'll try and ask uh, Isabella to come in. So I think it's getting ready. I think everything should be okay in a second. Isabella, you're on stage. Thank you very much for coming along. And it's great to have you here as well. You can see me okay? It's okay?
I can, yeah, perfectly well. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Isabella is currently she's head of research and innovation with Goethe Self-Help Africa. Isabella has lots of experience in issues in the developing world, and she has experience with the organizations in Rome, WFP, IFA, those organizations. So Isabella has a unique perspective to bring to this. She's also worked in human rights and various areas like this. So you're most welcome, Isabella, and if you want to add anything as to who you are or whatever, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Sean. I'll see if I can just share a couple of slides. I won't take too long because I'm conscious of time. Do you see my slides?
Your slides are up perfect, Isabella. For me, at least, I can see perfectly.
Okay, so I'll try to just fly through. But I was thinking of just taking the perspective within the Action 6 that we're discussing today, of looking at some examples of good practice in terms of sustainability coming from an NGO, Self-Help Africa, the organization I work for. And we are an agriculture organization. Our focus is really agriculture, nutrition, and enterprise development interventions in a number of countries in Southern, Eastern, and Western Africa, and we have our head office in Dublin. So I thought of just sharing the action really calls for discussions around training courses and certifications of skills on sustainability, and it kind of states that the premise for all of this is really to facilitate the circulation of professionals and the dissemination of good practice in terms of sustainability. So I was thinking from our perspective of Self-Help Africa, from our experience, what is good practice in sustainability and what are the skills requirements that can derive from some of our learning on the ground? So we take an approach to sustainability which is similar to what I think FAO used to use and probably continues to avail of, which is really looking at sustainability as a process rather than as a result. And it basically requires the development of a number of technical policy, governance, and other frameworks and skills to support agriculture producers and resource managers. So this is the area we try to work within. And we work at grassroots level, so with interventions on the ground. And then we look at sustainability at policy level. So really looking at those legal, policy, and institutional frameworks that form the enabling environment or the operating environment we work within. And our core principle is that combining initiatives on the ground with institutional reform at policy level is key in terms of enhancing sustainability of our interventions. Just very briefly, in terms of interventions on the ground and understanding sustainability at grassroots level, what we really see in terms of sustainable agriculture is really making full use of technology, research and development to foster inclusive agricultural growth, so the growth of the sector and also resilience for the sector, for households, for systems and communities. So I list here a number of interventions area which I'm sure are very well known, obviously, to all of you. And our particular focus in Self-Help Africa is really agriculture productivity, profitability, environmental health, social and economic equity. So we have a number of interventions on the ground working with communities to try and achieve some of these results. In terms of policy level, we try to influence those legal and policy frameworks in order to try and incentivize the adoption of sustainable practices at different level, to disincentivize actions that are going to deplete or harm the environment and the natural resource base for the communities we work with, facilitate access to knowledge and resources, which is an area we're discussing today, of course, and then safeguards the interest of smallholder farmers, which are the core group we work with. And we work in sector reform, we work with donors in terms of agenda setting, and we work with research institutions, UN agencies and other actors in terms of informing best practice in terms of sustainable agriculture and sustainable management of resources. I had here an example, but time may not allow us to delve into it, but I'm happy to discuss it later or to share information. An example about combining on-the-ground intervention and policy interventions for sustainable management of natural resources. And it's an approach called the functional landscape approach, which we have implemented in Zambia and Malawi. And it looks really at at recognizing linkages between ecosystem services and livelihood benefits for sustainable results for present and future generations. This is an approach that we have also evaluated after 10 years of interventions, and it showed still continued and sustained results over the period over the 10 years. So I won't go into the details and only show you kind of the name and the mention of it, so I can refer to it if you wish later on. I'm just conscious of time. One kind of observation that I think is really essential for us in terms of sustainability is really the multi-sectoral piece. So we always try to make sure that we enhance linkages across different actors at different levels, community, district, national, international, and also linking the work on the ground with interventions then up in the chain, so the national level, the regional level, and possibly the international level. Recently, we brought the experience of some work we did in Ethiopia to the national level government in Ethiopia, and then to the international level at a conference in FAO. So making those linkages, we feel, provide important learning for sustainability and long-term preservation of interventions. One other thing that I'll mention in terms of this the importance of multi-sectoral connections is in Ireland for the past 4 years, we've been coordinating a forum called the Irish Forum for International Agricultural Development, IFIAD. And this is a unique for Ireland, at least, initiative which brings together the Department of Foreign Affairs and the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine, together with a number of research institutions, farming organizations, NGOs, and private sector agencies. And the idea is really to bring learning across the different actors, disseminate learning and experiences, and really look at what is the agri-food response for Ireland in terms of some of the challenges we face, not only in Ireland, but in our programs overseas. And the sharing has been extremely powerful, and we're looking at commissioning joint pieces of research. So there's a lot of learning coming from these kind of multi-actor platforms. Just to translate some of this learning into the skills I feel are important to develop in terms of sustainability for programs in Ireland and overseas. There's obviously a whole range of technical skills in social science, crop science, genetics, but what is also important, and we notice as quite essential, are skills in terms of policy analysis, research, monitoring and evaluations, and those abilities and skills that relate to the regular assessment of the context and of the operating dimension and environments we work within. So together with the technical and agronomic skills, it is very important to associate those analytical pieces. And I'll just conclude with some just key considerations, again, from our learning. The importance of context analysis, not only like every time we look at sustainability and long-term continuation, long-term benefits for all of our projects and all of our interventions, we realize that context analysis has to be a continuous piece in our programs and in our interventions, understanding the environment we work within and constantly looking at it and rescoping what we're doing and looking at how change happened, how change happens and how it will happen. And this is a moving milestone. Questioning our assumptions. We often bring in external observation or external knowledge and forget that actually local knowledge can be just as powerful. Concepts like adaptations are not new. We don't bring them to our partner in developing countries. There are communities there that have been adapting for centuries. So I think combining local knowledge and external inputs is terribly important. And finally, just realizing that a politically informed perspective is terribly important in combination with science and knowledge in order to really appreciate sustainability and sustainability of interventions. So I hope I haven't gone too fast. I didn't want to take too much time, but just some observations from an organization, an agriculture organization working on the ground.
Thanks very much, Isabella. I really appreciate your contribution, your experience in the field, and you've drawn on your other experiences to add to that. And as I said, I think thanks again, and hopefully later on we'll have a little time to go through those and maybe have some questions and elaborate a little bit further. But I think I proceed as we already agreed to do. So I'll go on to the next person, and I'm hoping that Corinna might be available to speak to us next, if I can get Corinna online. Yes, I think we should have. Corinna, you're online. Great to see you, and you're welcome.
Good afternoon, Sean. Good afternoon to everybody. I hope you can hear me okay.
I can hear you. I can hear you perfectly, and I hope everybody else can as well. You've all seen Corinna's bibliography. Corinna, as I mentioned at the start, is president of ISLE at the moment, and herself and her colleagues were most helpful coming from the university and sustainability side. It's great to have you here today, Corinna, and to share your experiences with you.
I'd like to say a big thank you, obviously, to the organisers for the great job organising this conference. It's a huge task, I know, and I'd like to thank you also, Sean, for inviting ISLE to the stage. We're old friends. It's been 10 years now. We don't want to say that, but it's been a while. I don't know whether you can see my screen. Is this okay or not? Not sure whether you can see. I'm trying to share it. I think it's coming up.
It's not coming up.
It should be coming up. I hope it is. Maybe the connection is slow. I'm not sure. Anyway, well, we can start because again, it's a question of time. It's a shame if it doesn't come up. Yeah, we can leave 2 minutes. I think I've done what I should be doing. I hope so.
Yes.
Anyway, just while it's downloading it. So on behalf of the ISLE Association Administrative Board and its members, so Dr. Nidal Shaban, who's listening and following us as well, we're participating in this roundtable this afternoon to discuss how education for sustainability, notably in higher education, institutions can contribute to Goal 4 of the SDGs and notably to Target 4.4. Apologies for the absence of our colleague Jenny van der Loot from Van Hol Larenstein in the Netherlands. She had some urgent matters to deal with, but we will be able to start. And now it's still not working for me. Let's see if I can find another way to do this for you. Is that working now?
Nothing on this side yet, but oh yes, you have it. I think yes, perfect. Corinna, yeah, it's perfect.
Great. Okay, so so what we're going to do is we're going to see how this can be achieved through through 3 points. So academia, professionalization, certification. And then we'll give some examples of current international projects that are going on linked to education, and then also what IELE can contribute to the WAA 2030 agenda, the pilot projects that has been talked about, and the Future Master in Sustainability. So just a brief introduction to who we are. We're an association, a French association, as it's been set up in France, which is the follow-up to a European funded project, an Erasmus Plus project that took place from 2010 to 2013, and it was coordinated by Gros Sud Dijon, one of the French agricultural and food science schools, and it has now become a consortium of experts from various international academia, civil society, or companies. So the administrative board, I will leave the presentation with you, so the links you'll be able to see who we are. The administrative board comprises professors mostly from European and US institutions, all dealing with sustainability in their work. We have numerous amount of experts in different areas covering agriculture and food science, but all again linked to sustainability. I'm sure you saw yesterday the new report that came out on the Sustainable Development Goals report, so for 2020, and the link is there if you haven't been able to see it just yet. So it gives a great insight to what's going on generally in the world, and notably via countries. Okay, so per countries, and I'm happy to say that France comes fourth. So we do really well. So this particular roundtable is dealing with Sustainable Development Goals, and notably SDG 4, which is linked to ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. My colleague Nidal Shaban would have liked to have taken a little bit of time to discuss what inclusive education is, but I'm sure you all know what that is, but it was just to give an overview, as it is the main aim of the goal. And so in his terms, how can we advance inclusive education is making sure that governments are investing massively in system reforms to make sure that everybody is not being left behind. The SDG 4 goal, as you probably all know, is really linked to increasing the number of young adults, youth, who have relevant skills in sustainability, but not just sustainability, but including technical and vocational skills for their future employment. And so ways to do this, and especially in Europe, is through CEDEFOP. I'm going to give you just maybe some ideas at the bottom of each slide of what can be done in Europe or internationally in the different areas. So if you take a look at the European Centre for the Development of Vocational Training, they also deal with sustainability skills, green skills, and linking, and we will see this later, to other organisations promoting green jobs. So how can we promote education for sustainability skills? There are, like I said, 3 ways. First one is through academia, obviously the transfer between professors, researchers and students, and in our domain, which is sustainable development, using interdisciplinary skills. So how do we do that? Interdisciplinarity is the most important, of course. And also, we have to be able to rely on rectors, deans, head of studies, who are willing to adjust the training programs to use guidelines for teaching sustainability. Another way of doing this is through EU projects, whether it be as a coordinator or partners. And in the past, we have seen how useful and how important being part of international projects is. So here you will see, and we won't go into it very much, but we have a good practices compendium of sustainable development in Europe, which was carried out during the ILI project. We also have guidelines for teaching sustainability, and we have a possibility of applying for a project which is called Green Universities. And this is quite new, and so all the information of how to apply to be able to take advantage of this project is here. The second way is through professionalization. This is very important, and this is probably one of the hardest things to do for higher education institutions, is to make the link between businesses and civil society. How to adjust the training programs to meet the needs of the labour market. So in terms of sustainability, students' expectations, which is really important, obviously, to what skills do sustainable development graduates require. One way of doing this is creating what we call in France the chair, so chairs, different chairs linking the institution with businesses, companies, and the civil society. And again, implementing what we call green skills. And here we can see two organizations, Up again, and ILO, who are working on this. Then there's also social dialogues with civil society. And in our case, the way we do that is through one of our partners called Eating City, who propose summer campuses for youths who are trying to change the paradigm regarding the sustainable food systems. And so that's one way of making social dialogues, using the youths, linking them with the civil society, bringing people together to make those social dialogues, and coming out with what they call a declaration, which is disseminated widely through Europe. In terms of professionalization, we have a paper as well that we have produced called Sustainable Development and Employers Perspective, which is also available for reading. Finally, certification. You talked about certification of programs, and in Europe there are various ways that programs can be certified, skills programs, teaching programs, and even research. So the first is through the Ezeki Food Association. Many of you may know they have a European Quality Accreditation and Certification System for food studies mostly. Then there is the Association of Life Science Universities Accreditation System 2, ICA, which is a possibility. And I can talk about France, obviously, because that's where we're based. In France, the EduTaire Institute is an institute that accompanies all those working in counselling, training, and professional integration, but in life sciences in France. And then it depends on the French Ministry of Agriculture. Through ILI, there is a way of also certifying programs related to or dedicated to sustainable development, especially. That's called the ILI label, and it's the only labelization procedure that's able to be done and undertaken by a European platform through a peer system. So it would be professors that would validate and assess the teaching programs. So some examples of current international projects that are linking and trying to improve on sustainability skills in Europe is Ask Food. There's also AgLab, in which ILI is a partner. So Ask Food is the Alliance for Skills and Knowledge in the Food Sector specifically. AgLab is in terms of improving skills for laboratory practice, but both in the agricultural, veterinary, and also food sector. and that's mostly in Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine. Then we have Intrinsic, which is education for sustainable entrepreneurship, and that's in life sciences also. And coming up is a new Marie Curie project on sustainability and procurement in international, European and national systems, involving more researchers and hosting researchers in various areas of sustainable development. I'm going to finish very shortly just to say that higher education institutions, they can and they must play their role in promoting sustainable development practices. And the way to do this better is to make the links with companies and the civil society. How we can contribute, and this is something that we can discuss in the end, Sean, and maybe afterwards, there are various ideas for projects in various domains and covering various areas of the world, not just in Europe. So what we call connecting the food dots, when we see so many things, and the COVID has shown this already in terms of the short circuit system, in terms of food supply, and there are so many different areas that are not being covered. And if we can get these, so food and agriculture, what we call dots, linking them, then we can make for a better food system. There's also the possibility of following up the AGAG project, so again for laboratory specialists. We also have the possibility of creating at a lower level in the education system, which is also very important in order to get the younger students involved in sustainable development, and that's the Bioeconomy for Youth Network. We also have, and this is linked with Dr. Shaban, who has his contacts in the University of Qatar, who are looking to actually set up a complete agricultural department there from scratch. And so they've asked Ali to help them with that. And so we are finding experts all over the world to be able to set that up. And we would be very happy if both the WAA, CJO, of course, and FRO would be involved in that. There's also the contribution to the Master's Sustainability that is possible. And we could host the courses on our Moodle platform, which exists already. Going back to the green skills, there is a project of a platform for availability of green jobs for the students, researchers also. And then in table F3, my colleagues have been talking about the possibility of joining or even expanding on a cost proposal in sustainable agritourism. I'm going to leave you there. In the presentation, you have more information about ILE. We welcome anybody who's interested in working on education for sustainability. And thank you again for allowing us to be able to discuss things more with you.
Thanks very much, Corinna, for a very comprehensive presentation. You've covered a lot of ground, and thank you very much. You touched on many very interesting issues. So thanks again for the minute, and we'll see you later. Thank you, Corinne.
See you later.
So if I could call on Nadal next, please, if I can get him online.
Well, Nidal's with me. So if he could, I would like him to say a few words on inclusive education.
It's a giant thing for Corinne's. Yes, yeah, okay.
He will have a few words to say about inclusive education.
That's perfect. We should have him in a minute. This system tells me Nadal is ready to come on, but he's not arrived as yet, so we'll just give us another minute. Perhaps we should maybe go on to Julian and wait, try to get Nadal back on later on when we hope to have some short discussion. No, I think Julian is not online, so I just wait for, again, for Nadal. Sorry about this. I'm not sure exactly why we cannot either get Nadal or Julian onto the line, onto the screen. Yes, I will try inviting Nadal again, I think is the best thing to do at this point. Sorry, I still haven't Nadal. I'm not 100% sure if I can get him on screen. Isabella, you're back on stage again, so
Yes.
Yeah. Were you lost for a while?
Yes, I was just out from when I finished.
Okay, I'm not sure. I'm trying to get on the next speaker. Is there anything else that you can add on what you have said? It was you obviously come from probably with most of your projects being in the African area, it's probably a little bit different to maybe our people in Europe. How do you see particular problems in relation to Africa?
I missed our earlier speakers, so I'm not sure if I'll follow what they've mentioned. And
we're talking about are you down? Yeah, we were talking about inclusive education, talking about certification, various. Yeah, sorry, you seem to have lost. I'm trying to get people online, but for some reason the system is still not allowing me to be on the next speakers. Yes, I think Nadal might be ready now, or he might be coming through. Sorry about this. I don't seem to. I have found that Julian is not online, so for some reason we have lost him. So I'm not 100% sure who's online at the moment. We seem to have lost various people. I'm not sure if they can and again, and I'm not sure what the various speakers heard of the other people. So a little bit, let's say, I try if I can get the guy again to add to what already been said by Karina. Yes, if you can hear me, Julian has come in on my iPad saying that his connection broke down. So he was on the 4 line and had lost connection with Julian. So he has promised that we will get some information from Young Agro, that is the French Association, and he will be able to provide us with some information and to access the spirit and find the job. Is your line broken down, Nadal? Or? Yes, there is a problem with the line. I have just lost Julian in France also. He's not able to come through. Yeah. Thanks very much, Nadal. I will just relate that to, yes, yes. And so thanks again, Nadal, for being available. And thank you. Thank you, Nadal, and I hope to talk to you. Okay, thank you very much. Bye. Hello, Stephanie. Yes, so who is on the line? Is there who's on the line at the moment? Is Dale the only one on the line? Okay, is Corinne online? Okay. Yes, for discussion, how can we share information? Has anybody a question or a written question? Okay, so we can confirm that those two types have there will be translation from those languages available. Yes. Yes, yes. So, I'm not sure. So, if they're not online, so here, okay. Perhaps I might just bring on Serena again for a minute if she's available. Can we bring on Dave and Serena together? Can we bring discuss? We kind of, I bring on Dale as well. And is there anybody else? Just two people? Yes, and Corinne, I'll ask Corinne on as well. Corinne, yes. Oh, so just a second again. Invite on stage, pending invitation. Okay. Okay. Who else is there? I might have. Oh, you're there, Corinna.
Yeah, I've been here all the time. I'm just feeling so. I'm feeling so sorry for you, Sean, with the connection issues.
Those things we can't do anything about that. Perhaps we'll get some other people who are on the line. Maybe Anne-Marie might come on as well. Anne-Marie, and we can have a few people who can exchange some views.
Technology is great when it works, but
I know, when it doesn't work, it
can leave you in a very awkward position. So don't worry about it.
You're totally disarmed when it doesn't work. Absolutely.
Oh, definitely. If it makes you feel any better, they've had.
Anne-Marie is welcome. So, Anne-Marie, we've had Dale and Corinna and a few others. I presume you heard some of their discussion.
Yeah, about 90%, Sean. I went off for a few minutes, but I would be most of the content. So thank you and well done to all.
Yeah. Anne-Marie is Vice President of the ASA, the Agricultural Science Association in Ireland, and she's also come to help us. You're involved in different ends. I've known Corinna for several years, going back through CEDIA and through the IEL and the ICA Association, the Universities Group, and you have been working on sustainability, I think, before it was popular to work on it. Corinna, you can maybe outline maybe some of your experience back with the courses and with the efforts you made to have sustainability introduced into the various courses. What were the issues? Or you might be able to elaborate on some of that.
So we were actually very, very successful in achieving what we wanted to. We had a huge consortium at the time. So the rules for the Erasmus Plus at that time were to have a partner in 31 of the European countries. And so we managed to get 30. We didn't manage to get Liechtenstein. And so basically we worked together for 3 years to either introduce in some of the institutions, or to consolidate in the larger institutions, for example, SLU in Sweden, really gave more of their experience than they took from the project, for example. So it was really an exchange of good practices that we put into place. We started off with the state of the art of the sustainable development education throughout Europe. And it transformed into the good practices compendium, the guidelines of sustainability, professionalization as well, trying to get the businesses, which was probably the hardest part, to make the link with the companies, businesses, civil societies, to be able to adjust the training programs. And so many of the universities, I mean, it was a long time ago now, did actually change their curricula to introduce either a module, a course, or completely setting up a sustainability master's degree program, either alone or in conjunction with other institutions. And so what we do now is we try to continue on that line through European projects, because it's a question of sustaining the project after its lifetime. And so the way we found was to set up the association to be able to offer our experience and our expertise through the members, of course. I am not personally a professor, just the manager and coordinator and president in this case, but to bring together and to link the various expertise that are needed, and to take an expert from one country or one discipline to be able to help in a certain area in trying to change the program, set up a new program, or carry on with work that's already been carried on, and also in terms of the sustainability of the campuses too. It's not just on the teaching and research, and this is where the ILI label comes in.
Okay, so I'm just waiting to see if somebody else is coming in. Thanks, Corinna. Dale, just to come to you, you would see, with the CAP programs and that over the years, we've had REP and all those programs going back a long ways. Is there, and we've seen in the Green Deal now where they are setting various parameters, measurements and whatever. To what extent do you think that there's the possibility that, taxpayers' money that's paid out for doing this, that there will be value for money, and that people, and there will be a system in place to make sure that we are going in the direction of sustainability?
Yeah, I think that the whole area, we're in a period of, really serious change, I feel, for the agri-food sector. Certainly in Europe, and I think, ultimately the globe. I think Europe are playing a lead role in trying to transition, agri-food production systems to a more sustainable platform over the coming years and decades. And that creates challenges. The targets in the EU Farm to Fork strategy are incredibly challenging, like talking about reducing fertilizer use by 20%, reducing pesticide use by 50%. That's going to, those are really, really challenging targets. And without some kind of serious, change in other tools that are available to us, they're going to be very difficult to meet. We've had long discussions in Europe about GMOs, and the opposition to GMOs are very well documented in Europe. But there's new technology out there now in terms of gene editing and CRISPR, and are European consumers going to accept those technologies? Because ultimately, I feel, now it's a personal view, that it's not going to be possible to reach some of the targets in Farm to Fork without kind of taking a more kind of holistic look at other technologies and what they can do. But ultimately, it'll come down to the consumer, whether the consumer is going to, accept, this different approach. But it's not all negative. I think we do need to kind of remain positive, for our sector. As we kind of, navigate our way through this. But look, let's see where Farm to Fork goes. I think there's a lot of discussions. It's a roadmap. It's not legislation. So we have to see, what comes out of that ultimately, Sean.
Yes, obviously the bar is set very, very high on those. And I think, the legislators must take into account what the technical people are the level at which we are at scientifically and technically. We have seen with COVID where something landed on our plate and the technology or the medicine or whatever wasn't there to deal with it. And similarly, we don't want to drive farmers down the road of taking their tools from them. And
that's a big issue, Sean, because there are ambitious challenges there, ambitious targets around organic farming, and organic farming undoubtedly has a role to play, as we move to a more sustainable kind of food production model. But we will be coming from a very low base in Ireland, so for us to get anywhere near an EU average, over the next 10 years would require us maybe to go from maybe currently 70,000 hectares to maybe 1 million hectares, which it would be so difficult to achieve. Let's be honest. So I think these are targets for Europe as a whole, and each member state then will kind of have to engage with the Commission. And I think through the CAP process, we're not going to get our CAP strategic programs through Brussels unless we kind of show that our programs are aligned in the general direction of what is coming out in Farm to Fork. But there was some kind of maybe negativity, if you like, in some of the earlier drafts of Farm to Fork around meat consumption, for example. And, you know, as a country that exports, you know, as we would see it, you know, large quantities of grass-fed sustainable beef, you know, we were disappointed kind of to see that. The negative language was ultimately, it was toned down a little bit, you know, in the final version. But, you know, this kind of, you know, narrative that's kind of built, if you like, with you know, driven by, you know, if you like, the vegan movements and others, you know, that's something that, you know, is kind of concerning, because we would very much see, you know, meat and dairy products eaten in balance is an important part of nutritional, you know, diet for us all.
Absolutely. Of course, Europe is deficient in protein, and this has been the case for many years. And of course, I've seen some complaints, you know, that Europe should be doing something to up its protein production. Maybe, there is the connotation that Europe is eating and producing a lot of meat and causing problems, maybe where the soya bean is produced in South America. So
that's a big issue for the sector in Europe in general. It's an issue for agriculture in many member states, including Ireland. You know, so we would certainly look, and I think that is referenced in Farm to Fork in terms of becoming more sustainable at producing protein, you know, in Europe. But I think many people look at this, you know, too simplistically. Like livestock, you know, graze some of the most marginal lands, you know, globally, you know, and if those livestock weren't to, you know, graze those lands, you know, we're not going to be able to do anything else with them.
Well,
and this point is sometimes met. So, you know, we were pleased to see in the most recent IPPC report, land report, where it focused that, you know, there is still going to be a role for meat and dairy products produced in a sustainable way. We certainly need to do more and up our game. But as I said, it has to be balanced. You know, we can't have this narrative developing that somehow, you know, by eating meat and milk, you know, we're causing the planet to heat up. The science around that is changing, you know, and we're seeing that now recently in terms of, you know, Miles Allen's work in the University of Oxford.
Yeah, absolutely. The grazing animal plays a big part, and I've seen that in Africa. It's a pity Isabella's not here. Crucial
for African countries and developing countries like that in terms of providing a food source and a source of income. And, you know, it's okay for people, you know, we can all sit in our ivory towers and say, well, look, we shouldn't be doing this, or certain people can afford to pay a lot more for food. So, you know, we just need to be careful as a society, you know, and what we wish for.
Absolutely.
It's a shame that Isabella's not there just to talk. It's a great point what you said there, and but the problem with climate change in the African countries is going to obviously make things a lot more difficult in terms of what we want to do.
I just wanted to mention quickly before we finish the whole question of qualifications and the difference between Northern Europe and Southern Europe. The Southern European countries, they all have their professions registered. You're registered to practice as a professional. You must do your continuous professional development. You must show you're up to speed to do the job. Now, this is something we have discussed a lot on CEDIA. The northern countries say it's another layer of bureaucracy. The EU probably said a couple of years ago, we want to make things competitive. And I think that, in a sense, meant that the line that was taken in Eastern Europe wasn't going to be taken in Northern Europe, you know, because some professionals, they became so specialized and they had it so tied down as that it affected, it militated against competition. And that was the... in ASA, have you done it? Is there any thoughts recently, Anne-Marie, about, you know, from a professional perspective, where are we?
Yeah, most definitely, Sean, and hello to all your listeners and viewers, or well done to all the speakers earlier. Most interesting, I suppose, and great to get a reminder on the importance of education. I suppose we often forget that we're all learning every day and take it a little bit for granted. And I think it's all about that efficiency and that focus on what we can all learn. From an ASA perspective, I suppose just put some numbers on it. We have approximately 2,000 members, all agriculture graduates, and who are right across the spectrum. So I suppose much to Dale's point there, we'd have members who are selling fertilizer and selling pesticides, and people who work in all parts of industry. So education and training is a key part of our focus. We have monthly events that always look at education, but we certainly are, Sean, looking at maybe focusing a little bit more on a CPD or a more formalized element of that, and that people can avail of training maybe outside of even where their direct job role is. It does offer challenges in terms of having the right people delivering the right courses, having them at a time that suit people. But much to Dale's point earlier, I think COVID and Zoom and Microsoft Teams and Livestorm and these have all taught us what we can do. And that maybe the best of learning can be in short, snappy bites with relevance. But I think certainly, again, to the points that were made, that training and education needs to evolve. Doesn't have to be in a classroom, but also just in terms of educating people as to what agriculture, the important role we play. I think it was very important, Sean, and you probably would have seen it at the beginning of lockdown here in Ireland. ASA had an event and it was on the agri supply chain, and I think we had huge attendance on that. But a key recognition of that was the importance of agriculture to feed us all, and how that supply chain remained open. Shelves here in Ireland, fortunately, were never empty, but the food kept moving. So I think that's a key part of education of the broader society also, as to how important agriculture, farmers and their advisors are.
Yeah, I think from the point of view of our profession, I think, and this is part of what this whole webinar has been about and what the WA have been about in recent years, is probably we are the only profession really at the coalface when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to putting food on the table. There is no other profession there in that space. So, and I think part of the whole of this initiative is to strengthen that position and to, both politically and that our voices are heard in policy and that we communicate what's feasible and what's not, and
Exactly.
how advanced we are in progressing some of those agendas, and can it be done? Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I just got a message there from Julian in France. He's been listening in, but unfortunately he wasn't able to participate. So he has heard our discussion, and he hopes to be able to join us at another stage. So I think we're coming to the end of our, 7 o'clock European time, I think is the... Yeah, and I'd like to thank everybody for participating. And I'd like, again, Corinna gave us great help through her network. We found many people who, in the universities, even in the United States and other places, that we wouldn't have been able to reach. And thanks again, Corinna, for your...
Very welcome, very welcome.
Thanks.
My pleasure.
And Marie, I'll be in touch with Anne-Marie later, who has also been
Thank you very much.
taken to note for us. Yeah, and thanks again to everybody else who participated. Isabella, it's important. Unfortunate we weren't able to hold her online because the line broke also. But I think we had a nice combination of people bringing very... well, we say diverse views, but very different experiences. And I think that's what it's all about, to bring this sort of knowledge together. And again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming on board. And the documents will be available to tell me and translated into English, because the start, many people, of course, don't speak Italian, and that was difficult. Yeah. So thanks again to everybody.
Thanks to you, Sean. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Thanks to everybody.
Great. Okay, cheers to everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Sean? No. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.